Hi there, I'm Cathy Perlmutter, and I'm delighted to present my new book, Hexagon Star Quilts, 113 English paper piece stars to piece and applique. English paper piecing, or EPP for short, is very popular right now for good reason. It's fun, forgiving, relaxing, and a easier way to make designs that with traditional piecing can be very challenging. EPP is especially good for making stars, and what quilter doesn't love stars? They twinkle and spin, and they evoke starry skies. Here are 4 of the 7 projects in the book. These are the more advanced projects. This wall hanging is called Neutron Stars. It's entirely pieced. The second quilt I call Star Chart. It's a combination of applique and piecing and hung at Houston as well as the Road to California juried show. This is Cherry Pie in the Sky with Diamonds. It was also accepted to Houston and done with applique and piecing. Finally, Luncheon Leftovers, which combines vintage linens and orphan quilt blocks with new turquoise and yellow prints used to make the floating hexagon stars. English paper piecing is great for star making because of all the Y seams. Every one of these innies is a Y seam. And with traditional piecing, they require the 3 Ps, pins, patience, and perfect 1/4-inch seam allowances. But with English paper piecing, Y seams are a relative breeze. My book has recommended stitching order for each block to save time and thread, but you can choose a different order and still wind up with good seams. Here's the stitching order I suggest for star 92. First, surround the central hexagon with the points and then set in the background pieces. But if you get distracted or you want to do it some other way, like say adding each background piece to a star point and then joining all of them to the center, well, that will work too. There are 113 stars in my book. Why 113? That's how many I sent the publisher. I thought they'd cut them back to 50 or 75 or 100 or some other catchy number, but to my surprise, they kept them all, which is a good thing. It gives readers choices. Some of the stars are mirror images, like star 43 down here, which spins left, and star 44, which spins right. Some stars that look similar are actually quite different, like stars 9 and 10. The difference is that star 9 has no corner seams and star 10 does have seams in the corners. The next slide will show you why this is important. With my first English paper piecing project, this group of 7 stars, I learned that if all the blocks have corner seams, joining them neatly will be challenging. At each of these blocks' corners, where they meet, there are 9 seams. It was a hot mess, and I even wound up with holes. I had to take it apart and do it over. That's how I learned it's far smarter to place stars that do have corner seams, like this one, touching stars that don't have a corner seam, like this one. When stitched together, you don't have nearly as many seams, preventing a tight fit. Another important difference between these 2 similar looking blocks is that one spins right and one spins left. When placing stars in a quilt, like down here, mixing up the spins, this one spins right, this one spins left, makes the stars twinkle and keeps the viewer's eyes moving. And these aren't the only unique tips. There are tool tips you won't find anywhere else. For breaking through glue to remove cardstock templates, I discovered a bowl tip stylus. Also helpful for getting out cardstock bits is a curved neck hemostat. Regular school glue pens work when basting, but glue sticks work when basting, but glue pens are better when you're on the road, when you'll be bringing your projects on the road. And maybe the most unique thing about my book is that it details machine as well as hand English paper piecing. The biggest pro for machine sewing is that you finish much faster. Machine sewing is also much easier on the hands and shoulders for people like me who have carpal tunnel or other issues. Now we'll take a quick ride through the book's simplest project, the mandala candle mat. By machine, you can make this in a day. By hand, maybe a week. First, pick the star you want in the center. I chose star 13, but any star works. Second, print out, photocopy, or trace the star page onto paper or cardstock. If you'll be machine sewing, I suggest you consider printing or tracing it onto Decor Bond fusible interfacing, a Pellon product which goes through a printer and can stay in the project permanently. Each hexagon is 6 inches across from point to point. There are 2 blocks on each page, a small piecing diagram, a photo, and a suggested piecing order. Cut apart the pattern pieces. You needn't worry about mixing them up with pieces from a different block. Every single piece has a star number and an arrow pointing to the center. A dot marks the exact center of the block. Step 4, cut fabric for each piece using scissors or a rotary cutter, whichever you like. Seam allowances do not have to be perfect. Next, decide how you want to baste. I illustrate several methods, including hand stitching, starch, and a glue pen, or a glue stick, especially at the ironing board. Here's what decor bond templates look like, pressed in position and then with the edges glued inwards. Another important tip is what I call basting with commitment. With experience, I learned how critical it is to choose a folding direction and stick with it. That means at every corner, either fold in the left or the right side first. In the hexagon here, I push inside 1 first, fold 2 over it, 3 in, 4 over it, 5 in, 6 over it. In a triangle, it looks like this. Side 1, corner 1, that goes in first, 2 on top of it, then 3, and then 4 on top of it, and tuck the last piece in. All the tails will point in one direction from the back. Here, they're all pointing to the left and counterclockwise, and from the other direction from the front, pointing right. And this shows why it's so vital. The tails will nestle underneath each other without bashing into each other. Here you can see how all of everything fits together and the tails don't get in each other's way in a complicated block. Sew the pieces together. As mentioned before, the book details doing it by hand and doing it by machine. Also unique are the setting shapes that work with every star. They're full size, ready to copy onto paper, cardstock, or interfacing. Along with the central block, the mandala mat requires 12 triangles and 10 squares. Here's a diagram that shows how it came together. And there are options for finishing off each project. You can turn the outside edges inward to a same shape backing, which is what I did here, or you can applique the piece to a larger backing like a square or a rectangle, and I explain how to do it by hand or by machine. Here's the second project in the book, a fun table topper that I call Starlight Sisters with 7 stars made from blue and gold prints. The diagram shows how it's pieced and how it's quilted. Next, this project I call Windward. It has 11 stars in it, and you can choose the same blocks I did or pick the ones you like best. Now you're ready for one of the more ambitious projects. Here's how I made cherry pie in the sky. The center is pieced with 7 hexagons in the middle, plus 35 more in the arm extensions. The piecing diagram is here. And below, after I finished sewing the central unit together, I persuaded my daughter to pose on the porch to take a picture of it. The templates were still in place, which is why it's so stiff. After the photo, I pried out the cardstock templates and machine appliqued it to the white background. This book also reveals my design secret, a set of wooden children's blocks that I picked up at a yard sale in the 90s. The yellow blocks are hexagons. Those stand in for my star blocks, and everything that surrounds them are the setting shapes. On the right, you can see some of my toy brainstorms. Formations with 1 star block, 2 to 6 star blocks, 7 star blocks, 11, and this one actually eventually became Windward, 13 star blocks, and 19 star blocks. These toy block sets are widely available and very inexpensive online, but if you don't feel like buying them, there's a page in the book where you can color and cut out mini versions of the same shapes, combine them with the mini diagrams that were next to each pattern, and play around with them to design your own.